Welcome to another episode of Awakening the Feminine Within. And today we're going to talk about what it's like to actually, what feminine energy looks like in day-to-day living and in real day-to-day life circumstances. And today I have with me Joyce Hanson. She is actually an amazing photography client of mine. And what's really amazing about Joyce is she very authentically lives her life totally and truly to feminine energy. She is not a coaching client. She has not been a coaching client. She is just someone who has truly exemplified and really given her life over to feminine energy, whether that's intentional or not, we're going to get into. But she really is an incredible example. And she has some amazing, even most recent, like within the last week, examples of the importance and why feminine energy is so important to live your life from that perspective. So Joyce, give us an intro. Tell us about yourself and who you are and what you do in life, all the good things.
So I'm a crazy cat lady who works from home. I work in IT, so I work from home. And I insist on it being 100% remote because that works for me. I'm just someone who's good to themselves. Do what I want, when I want, how I want.
Okay, let's go back though. Let's like go back. Because I feel like, do you feel you've always been this trustworthy, like in like being careful? Okay, so let's go back.
No, there's been a few things. I did not like myself.
Okay.
In high school.
Okay.
To the point that when it was back when this was a thing, my friend had a shirt that said I was stupid, and I had this shirt that said stupid.
Oh my gosh.
When I went to college, I kept wearing it until one of my friends made me throw it away. Yeah, and I didn't even think anything of it. But I did not have self-confidence. I struggled. Later through college, I was being bullied more, but I started standing up to it and just standing up a little bit, but mostly removing myself from the situation. So as I've been in relationships, I lose my femininity because I give too much.
Right.
But then I pop right back into the feminine. I get fed up and it's like, okay, enough.
Yeah.
Good.
Your boundaries.
This is me.
Come back. Yeah.
Right. So, but it was always things happen for a reason and everything's going to work out.
Yeah.
So once I got to a point where I had some confidence, that's how I've lived my life.
So what would you say that point was? Was there something that like really triggered the flip for you where your threshold was like, you know what, I don't want to live my life with like the lack of confidence or the lack of trust anymore? Like, was there a specific situation or was it just like something over the period of time that...
Over time.
Okay.
Over time. And it was living in LA, which is a really interesting environment to find that.
Okay.
Because it's so LA. Very superficial. But, as I discovered, that's when I found out, really good looking guys like bigger women sometimes. And it was, it was like, oh, I can be me. And then I hit a point where, when I was going out, I was tired of guys just wanting to hook up and being at their whim, and I decided I was going to flip it. So I hooked up when I wanted to, and it was at my whim. And so just slowly things would happen. Where it's really happened a lot is when it's been time to change jobs. Because I've moved 4 times for across the country for jobs, but it's like, it'll work out. When I've been laid off, recently, the 3rd time, I've just trusted that it's going to work out.
Yeah.
I let go. I let it happen.
Well, and okay, but let's go back to your breast cancer story too, because I feel like this also plays in to your trust factor.
Yes.
So when it happened, when you were like diagnosed with breast cancer, what was your immediate reaction? And do you feel like you were far enough along in your journey of like trusting and self-acceptance that you were like, oh, this is just another bump in the road, but it is not something I really have to like overwork myself on?
Right. So when I got the diagnosis, I fell apart for a few hours.
Yeah.
Just completely didn't expect to. I expected to get the diagnosis because it's hereditary. Yeah,
Hereditary.
Thank you. Lost the word. In my family. So and my friends kept saying, oh, stop saying it. You're going to make it happen. I'm like, no, it's just a thing.
Yeah.
And so I expected just to be okay. I let them tell me when I was at work. That was a mess. But by the end of the day, I was just telling everyone, this is the first step in being a survivor. And I was And that's what it was. I knew I was going to survive. My mom had, my grandmother had. I had no doubts. I knew I would be okay.
Yeah.
I just had to go through it.
So at what point, number one, did you discover it was hereditary? And number two, did you tap into the belief that you were going to be fine before you were even diagnosed with it?
Yes.
Like when? At what point? Like what's the story behind there and the timeline of things?
Always, because after my mom had it, it was like I just, in my gut, I knew I was going to have it at some point, and it would be fine. It never occurred to me that breast cancer could kill you. I mean, I knew it could, but you
didn't entertain that.
Yeah,
you didn't entertain that thought.
That's not what happens in my family. We just treat it and go on. So it was, yeah. I mean, it was second nature to me once I got over the initial shock of the words.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had already focused on, prior to the event happening, what the story was going to be, and the story is what you held on to.
Yeah.
So going back to what it was like before you were in this phase of like trust and like, I'm just going to do things my way. I'm going to support my desires and my wants and my beliefs. What was it like? Do you feel like you gave in to more fear and like made decisions according to that way? Or is just like you felt like you were kind of making decisions like, oh, well, this is just what I'm supposed to do? Because I remember us talking a while ago at photo shoots, like how you got into the IT industry, and it was kind of like happenstance, right? And so it just kind of was like, but do you feel that, okay, I'm going to rephrase this. Do you feel like living your life, you've just kind of been guided? Do you feel like you've had this like innate trust that you're like, oh, I'm being guided to what is meant for me?
Yes.
Where do you think that comes from, though? Do you feel like that came from like a familial thing? Like you were kind of inherited it from like the beliefs that your parents had?
No, not from my family. It just, it just, I don't know where. I guess because things have happened. Some bad things have happened. Bad things happened when I was younger. I was raped. I had a stalker. Everything worked out. Everything was okay. You know, scary during the time, but everything worked out. And I always looked at those things as, I don't have any regrets. I'm okay that these things happen, because I wouldn't be where I am at any point when I've been, you know, I just always say I wouldn't be where I am if that hadn't happened. I wouldn't be who I am if those things hadn't happened.
Yeah.
So it's all part of the bigger plan.
Right. So even when, for example, like the rape happened, because that was when you were quite a bit younger, right?
16. 2 weeks after I turned 16.
Okay. So you were still in that probably like, I'm stupid, like phase. So how did you not let that affect your identity?
Because somewhere inside me, I knew it was never going to happen again.
Okay.
I always immediately afterwards to myself, I said, this is never going to happen to me again. If I have to kill someone or they have to kill me, it's not happening. That's it. It happened. It will not again.
So even though you were still attached to this identity of like, I'm stupid and I'm like, you know, whatever, you still had, so it was almost like you were split kind of in your identity and belief systems, because there was a part of you that believed like, I'm a fool, whatever. And then there was a part of you that was able to identify and support yourself amidst the trauma that was going on.
Yeah.
And so that's really fascinating. And it's really interesting to observe, like going back and thinking about it. Do you feel that it sounds like LA really had a lot to do with your beliefs and affected your belief system?
It did somewhat, but there's always been that piece of me that just has trusted. Even as a little girl, we would go camping. I would wander off on a trail for hours by myself, knowing I'd be okay. There are bears in the woods where
Right.
And, you know, but I just...
It sounds like you're very in touch with your intuition. Like you have this like ability to know that you have this feeling inside yourself, and you lean on it, is what it sounds like is what all happens.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And would you say it's a feeling, like how aware were you? It sounds like pretty much from like when you were a couple years old, sounds like you were pretty aware that you had this feeling.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, It's like, trust your gut.
Yeah.
I have lived trust your gut.
Yeah.
And it works. It's the feminine.
Right.
It's for 100%. And it has guided me throughout my whole life.
Yeah.
Not that
Totally.
I have listened to it 100%, because otherwise some of the bad things wouldn't have gotten there. But
Right.
you don't always listen to the good stuff all the time.
Can you think of certain examples where you have not listened to your gut and it's like produced an outcome that was not desirable? Give us some examples.
A really good one is my last boyfriend.
Okay.
Because he was being a little sketchy when we were first dating. And I didn't end things when I had opportunity to. So I ended up being with him for more years than I should have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I didn't listen then. And that was, I would say in my dating life is when I haven't listened
Okay.
most, which is kind of crazy, but that's why now I don't. I don't date. But I'm okay and I'm happy. I know this is where I'm comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't miss it.
Yeah.
It's like if I ever want physical affection, that's easy to find. But yeah, I'm just I'm me. I'm meant to be just me. My nieces and nephews love it because I was always an example of a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So that it wasn't just always, graduate high school, go to college, get married, have kids, because there was Aunt Joyce there who did not follow any of that.
Yeah. You didn't
I went to college, but
yeah. Yeah, you didn't have the stereotypical path of what society expects you to do. Yeah, you were able to tune into yourself and what you really wanted to do and just followed that path instead.
Yeah. And even I was an accountant for a long time. Bored me to tears.
Yeah.
And I knew, I recognized that wasn't working for me. So I started working temp, trying to figure out what I was going to be when I grew up. And I ended up taking a temp job doing accounting only because the money was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And in less than a year, I moved over from accounting into IT. And that's where I got into IT, which is the work I really love to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like your trust in life is directly connected to your trust in yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's like the more you trust yourself, the more you trust that things are going to work out for you.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like is kind of like how it happens in terms of how you live your life and how things come to you that you want because you recognize that accounting wasn't working. And then you basically put the feeling out there that this isn't working. So something else is going to come along that's going to serve me. Boom. You didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
You were totally open.
Yes. I considered becoming a bartender.
Right. You didn't have any reservations about what it needed to be.
No.
So, okay, let's talk about that for a second because an aspect of feminine energy that people get overwhelmed by is not putting parameters around what they want. So most people in that circumstance would automatically start searching industries about what else could I do? But it sounds like you were just like, you know what, I'm just going to trust, maybe start searching, but you didn't put parameters on what it was that you were supposed to do. You were just like, oh, I'm just going to trust the universe, maybe do some general searching. You really listened to you. Very much made sure to not be like, okay, well, I have to work in this industry or this industry or this industry. You were totally, totally open.
Yeah.
So is that something, again, kind of going back to this whole, is that something that you find that was inherent to your personality and just what you grew up with? Or do you find that that's something that you were like, I need to let go of that?
No, it is. It is me. Now, where I didn't listen in college, it's the stubborn side of me because, they said, it's small percentage, single digit percentage of people graduate in the major that they start.
Yeah.
Okay. Challenge accepted. And so I did. Otherwise, I would not have gone into accounting. Just like they said at the college I was at, you are not going to graduate without taking an 8 a.m. class. Challenge accepted. Succeeded with both. Mm-hmm. So there's that aspect of me where it's like, don't challenge me for something I know I can manage. Because then it's like, can't resist that sometimes.
Right.
But otherwise, whatever comes.
Yeah, it's like whatever
meant to happen.
Yeah, whatever the universe is going to provide is going to give you more of what you want anyways. So why bother even trying to put or waste energy in something that is really just pointless because it's just going to be served to you on a silver platter.
Yeah. I mean, my first indication that I shouldn't have been doing accounting was it took me forever trying to find a job after I graduated. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting one when I moved to California. Mm-hmm. First living with my brother in Northern California and then in Southern California. I was working right away when I moved down there.
Right. Well, I'm sure that there were a lot of red flags along the way in terms of like going to school for accounting, that it just wasn't. What are some of those red flags that you were like maybe only put together after you were already in the industry, but you should have paid attention to earlier on?
My freshman year, when my advisor told me I should change my major.
Okay, so pretty early on.
Challenge accepted.
It was more so like you want to be able to prove yourself that you can do anything that you want, but it doesn't mean that doing anything you want is actually going to serve you or make your life better.
Right. I'm not like that anymore.
Yeah.
I grew
because you don't need to prove yourself anymore. That's why. But it sounds like when you were at college age, that desire to prove yourself to yourself and other people was still very heavily there.
Yeah. And I think part of that goes back to the being bullied.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay,
you need to do the steps to show people.
Yeah. This is my worth.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that situation is totally applicable, like even in now, but like more so, probably even worse actually with social media, because it's like, oh, well, I think a lot of women are like, oh, I need to prove myself as a mom, or, oh, I need to prove myself as a business owner. Or, oh, I need to prove myself like in my job. And they end up following this path of a lot of resistance because they're just simply not supposed to show up they're showing up for other people. They're not showing up for themselves. And so it ends up leading down this path of incredible frustration and health problems and so on and so forth. Let's talk about your health problems because that's how we got introduced. You came for a photo shoot because you wanted to empower yourself. But I want to know when you were like, okay, so give the audience a brief rundown of your health problems, because I feel like this came after the breast cancer, right?
Some before, some after.
Okay.
So I had thyroid problems before.
Yeah.
And which is just
a nightmare.
It's so crazy. And then when that happened, I was with my last boyfriend that I shouldn't have stayed with.
Right.
And then after got that diagnosed and was working on it, which for anyone that ever faces it, it took 2.5 years to get my medication, right? Then I had this weird health thing go on, and I had broken up with my boyfriend and he was about to move out. But like I was gardening and I was like, I need to go inside. I don't feel right. I don't remember from the time I decided that until I woke up on the couch. Because I basically blacked out functionally.
Yes.
So worked with my doctor. He sent me to a specialist. It was migraines, but it's silent migraines. So it's not the headache. It's all the other things that can happen. A really stressful job I was in. And then it got worse because I had a really bad boss. And so I was like, I'm going to get a new job. Found the lump for the breast cancer while I was in the middle of interviewing for my job. So I didn't do anything because I got the new job. And then as soon as insurance kicked in, I had an appointment. And I have to say my employer was great because being diagnosed and treating it in the first 6 months that I am employed,
they can be risky.
They completely supported me.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to know the diagnosis till after I was hired. I didn't want to have to disclose it.
Right.
I just didn't want to interfere.
Yeah.
Let things happen.
Yeah.
So there was a lot with the breast cancer. I did reconstructive surgery, very disconnected from my body.
I was just going to say your body, it sounds like, went through a lot of trauma, whether it was relationship induced, job induced. And basically, so expand on what it was like to deal with the frustration of weight gain, because I know that was something that took place in the course of that time period, like the thyroid and the breast cancer. And I remember, and explain to people, why you chose to come in and do the photo shoot and just how in that process and in that time frame. So what was it like dealing with your body in the weight gain to the point where you were like, oh, I need to love you more, so I'm going to go and do a photo shoot?
So I had done small things to get used to it. Like I got the nipple tattoos because for anyone that doesn't know, double mastectomy, you've got nothing. You end up with mannequin boobs until you do that. And that was a big step forward. But I still didn't feel sexy or sexual.
It was like you had lost half of you. You had lost your physical side of who you were.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, with the trauma and then the weight gain and new boobs, you're like, who is this?
Yeah. So it was one thing that helped me move towards that was I was in LA visiting, hooked up with an ex-boyfriend who was completely cool and very supportive. And that was good. That was a step. But then, still not feeling totally. And then when my friends gave me the invite to join your group on Facebook, and I saw it and I started seeing the photos that you'd post, I was like, well, that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it. I didn't know it was going to be so empowering. And, you just can't really describe what it's like to do your photo shoot. And of course, now they've evolved because I've done so many.
Yeah.
But it's really being able to see those shots as you're taking them. It just makes you relax and enjoy and see that sexual side.
So it was like you were seeing a different side of you that you needed to see. It's basically like you don't know what you don't know until someone shows it to you. Right. And then you're like, oh, that's what I've been missing.
I was seeing me from your point of view.
Right. Yeah. You were seeing the beauty and I am still hot and sexy and things like that. Do you feel that the photo shoot and being able to see and reconnect with your body affected your ability to lose weight or and sped up the process?
It did, because I didn't feel the need to. So,
right.
So the weight, I've been active in the weight loss, but it's been more on the side of wanting to be healthy, not get to a specific weight.
Yeah.
And so, years into this, I'm still following a program, but I weigh myself every day. I don't really care what the weight is.
You're not letting your weight define you. You're defining like, oh, well, this is, again, going back to the feminine energy. You're controlling how it's happening, not feeling like you're doing this because your smaller size, your smaller weight is then going to like magically give you this, feeling that you're chasing. You already have the feeling.
Yeah. It's just going to be help my health,
right?
Be healthy, but eating right's going to do that. I might get into some clothes that might fit better and look cuter. That's always a plus. But
even in that context, I felt like even throughout the photo shoots, you were always like, oh, I'm cute anyways. You know what I mean? It was like since that first initial photo shoot, you always, gave me the impression that you felt cute and confident no matter what size that you were at.
Yeah. And when I did the first one, it was kind of letting go, because I remember talking to my friends saying, I could wait until I feel like I've lost some weight that I would look better. But why?
Right.
Why not just go ahead and do it?
Yeah. Take a risk on yourself.
And that was a very intuitive thing. There's, it was just kind of, okay, just go for it.
Yeah.
And then, I've been up and down throughout my photo shoots. And, the photo shoot where I weighed the most, I love those photos.
Yeah.
It
doesn't feel like those photos are a lesser version of yourself. You still feel very whole and very complete in this process of the health aspect of reconnecting with your body throughout like the weight gain and things like that. So it sounds like, you really took the time and the effort through certain things to really reconnect with your body and to see it in a positive light. Sounds like the photo shoot was a huge part of that.
Yes.
But also just your desire and your angle around the weight loss has been not from an aesthetic point of view. It has been solely from what is going to make me feel good. And this just happens to coincide with health. It's not about it. And I mean like that internal feel good, not that external like vain looking in the mirror like, oh, I'm hot shit.
No, but I can look in the mirror, and I do look in the mirror every day. I look at myself naked.
Yeah.
And I appreciate my body.
Yeah. Do you feel like you did that while you were gaining weight?
No.
You weren't there yet?
No, wasn't there yet.
At what point in like your, process did that happen where you were like, oh, I feel safe in my body to be able to stand in front of the mirror naked and be able to look at myself that way?
I'm not sure when.
Okay.
I'm not sure when I started doing that.
Okay. But it was something, again, intuitively, you were like, okay, I need to work on loving myself more.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's talk about your recent job situation, because I feel like I had already, you guys, for those people who are listening, I had already decided I was going to have Joyce on the podcast. And I sent her a message and I said, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? And she was like, yep. And I said, threw out some dates. And you were like, oh, well, I got to check because I just I got to back up before I even say that. Okay, got to back up. Joyce came in for her birthday photo shoot in March. And she was like, oh, I got laid off in January, I think it was, or something like that.
February.
Yeah, February. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she's like, yeah, I'm going to take a whole year off, do what I need to do, enjoy life, take it easy. And I'm like, great, good for you. Like, that's amazing. And she was like, finances all got taken care of. She's very organized, all that stuff. Good, whatever. And then we've been hanging out, going to movies, etc. No update. She's just been living her best life, gardening, all the plans. And so it had been like probably like 3-4 weeks since I had hung out with you last.
Yeah.
And so I sent her this message and she replies and she's like, oh, I got to check my calendar because I got a job offer. And I was like, excuse me, what? I'm like, it hasn't even been that long since I seen you. And and she was over here like, I'm only going to start applying for jobs at like the end of the summer. In terms of like serious applying, because she had to apply for unemployment reasons for regular, but that was just like for her, it was just like a tick in the box. It wasn't like, I wasn't
really looking.
Yeah, you were actively searching for like your forever job.
It's like, I want my unemployment checks to come.
Right, exactly. So what's really funny is I was like, well, how did that go down? She was like, oh, I was just applying for regular unemployment stuff. And then I got an offer and 3 days later, or no, you had an interview and then 3 days later she got a job acceptance. And I was like, what the actual heck? I'm like, that literally fell into your lap. And I was like, and I literally sat there thinking, this is exactly why she's coming onto the podcast, because you were not even trying to get a job.
No,
you weren't actively searching. And it literally, like, they reached out to you, like, everything happened so quickly. FYI, she's starting next week and it's all been great. She's still going to be working from home. Pay is still amazing. And so, like, talk about just the trust factor when you got laid off, because most people's instances are going to be like, holy shit, my life is up in flames. Like, I need to go panic. What am I going to do financially, et cetera, et cetera. But you were just like, oh, okay, it's just another day.
It was the best thing that happened.
Well, and I think did you feel it coming?
Huh?
Did you feel it coming that you were going to get laid off?
I knew it was a possibility.
Okay. So it was possible.
Yeah. So the way it was is, frustrating job, and I kept trying to advocate for myself because the company says do that. They don't really mean it, but I kept trying to advocate for myself, and I didn't want to just leave the company. A lot of good people, there's a lot of good things that company does, and I wanted to try and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept trying, and then I did hit a breaking point when, for the second year in a row, I got blindsided on my review. And it was like, fine. I had surgery coming up, beginning of April. And I was like, okay. At first, my plan was to make myself take 4 weeks. That's not always good about taking enough time after something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then after the review, I'm like, oh, no, I'm taking full 6 weeks that I'm going to get. And I'm going to find a job while I'm doing that. And so I was just all prepared for that. Yeah, company didn't have a good year. They did. It wasn't just me being laid off. A group of people got laid off. And I was so happy. I was the happiest laid off person. I knew when I got the meeting invite, there were indications. So I knew that's what it was. And it was done, via a Skype meeting. And I was all smiles. And I was like, okay, yeah, next adventure. Okay, sure. Yeah. And I was even like, so do I have to work today or is it just done right now?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you're done right now. And it's like they did not really quite know how to handle how I was.
Yeah, because you were so chipper that it was like, whoa.
And I was. And it was net positive cash.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I could plan on just taking however much time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I was thrilled, it was crazy. So I just was going to enjoy it. I was able to take a month, get a big project in my house done that it was on the list for 11 years. And then I had my I was relaxed when I went in for my surgery. I had time to relax and really heal from it without any stress. And then, like I said, just doing my weekly, got to apply for jobs. And there was one, the exact description of the work that I so love doing. And it was like, but it still wasn't, I really want this,
You were in a desperate energy. You were just like, okay, if it's, I'm going to check it off. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Yeah. Again, you were not putting parameters around what you were trying to get. You weren't trying to control the outcome.
I I don't change my they tell you change your resume for every job that you apply for, do a cover letter. I don't do any of that.
No.
So it's just sent off, same as all the rest, And that was a Saturday, email Monday, conversation with the company recruiter Tuesday, hiring manager, interview Wednesday, verbal offer Thursday.
Yeah. Super fast.
Just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's where I'm supposed to be working.
Yeah.
I'm not fighting it. Yeah. And I was starting to feel like, I could work. I could be okay with working, you know, it's fine. I've had, 3 months, man. Never get that in life,
right?
A 3-month break. And so I feel ready to go back. And part of it's because it's work that I'm going to love doing. It's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it happened. It came to me.
Yeah.
I let go for the whole situation. It was just me letting go,
Yeah. And you not trying to control the outcome.
No.
But also, okay, so I feel like what plays a big role into this, and for those people who are like, struggling to understand, because I think a lot of people get so caught up in the to-do of like, oh, well, I have to go do this if I get unemployed, or, oh, I have to go and do this if like a life breakdown situation happens. And for you have a very good sense of like pleasure. So you do watch a lot of TV, you play video games, you love to garden, you are so in touch with what you enjoy that I feel like for this, you were like, oh, I'm going to enjoy it. Your first instinct was to like, what am I going to get out of it for me?
Yes.
And how can I go and have fun? And how can I play? So your life literally consists of things that you enjoy doing, literally. Like that's the predominant factor and feeling of your day-to-day living.
Absolutely.
And so I think that that's important for the audience to hear, because it's not that you're like, you don't work to live. Like you literally live to enjoy working and enjoy your cats and enjoy like all the fun activities. Like and I feel like every time you've come in and every time that we've hung out, you're always like, oh, this is the fun I did. It's always like, you're always having fun.
Yes.
Literally. Like you're always like, this is what I enjoy. This is what I love. And you encourage that and you literally make that a priority. Mm-hmm. And I think that for women who are like struggling, and that's why I wanted to have you on here today, because I think a lot of women are struggling, like, first of all, to even conceive of what it's like to live life, living in enjoyment. But I mean, like for me, you're like, oh, I love watching TV and I love playing video games and I love gardening. And I'm over here and I'm like, oh, I love reading books and I love watching TV. We share a lot of the same Outlander, shout out. We love watching, and our days are built into it's built into our day-to-day living. And so there's never like, oh, I resent this because I don't enjoy it. It's like, oh, I just get to experience all these really amazing things because you have one life and you get to experience them. So I feel like your ability to play and enjoy life had such a huge factor on your response to being laid off, because you were like, ooh, what's the universe going to give me now? What kind of enjoyment is the universe going to give me? It's like having that positive outlook in your day-to-day when you were already working had a massive impact on your response for when you got laid off.
Yes, absolutely. And, for years I've been like, I'm good to me.
Yeah.
I learned to be good to me. Buy myself things, let myself do stuff, let myself enjoy life.
It was a muscle that you had to build.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And built it over the years. And I was like, wow, I can like cut through my Netflix queue. It's still ugly, but it was like, I'm going to make the most of this. Now I did take like an hour, looked at the money to know.
Of course, you needed to know the numbers.
The numbers, they're there. This supports what I want to do. I get to relax about this.
But even with the money things, because like so for people that don't know, and I've known Joyce for a couple years now, 3 years now, since 2020. So you love to shop. And I feel like you let your desire lead in terms of like, even with finances. And I feel like, again, why I wanted to bring you on here, because like you don't, like you look at something or say you're shopping, you're like, oh, I really want that. But it's like, even if it is something superficial, or even if it is something like a, remodeling project that you want to do in your home, you trust that ability in yourself. And you know that like, even if you're going to do this project or whatever, even like photos and coming and like paying for photos, you know that you're going to be taken care of no matter what. Like that trust factor is like literally dictates all of your decisions. So there's no fear. There's no fear of like, oh, I'm going to be homeless on the street. Like you have this innate, and you've built up this trust muscle of like, I'm just going to be taken care of. Like literally when I say your belief, like the universe is my sugar daddy, is literally like how I would say that, like, that's your slogan.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue there. Yeah. And I have been shopping new dress.
Yeah.
I have been buying things throughout this. I have spent money. I'm living. I'm still going to live. I could have taken the approach, I'll wait till I get a new job, and whatever money's left of what I've set aside to live on, then I can do this. Yeah. I paid off all of my bills so that all I have is my mortgage and then my monthly bills. And then I've still shopped. Yeah. Which makes me happy. Now, I'm a weird shopper. It's like I have to convince myself I really want something. So like this dress went into my cart 4 times.
Yeah, you have like different levels of like, do I really want this?
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like after the 4th time, it's like, why have I not just bought it? Checkout.
Yeah.
No,
what's really funny is I'm the exact same way.
And it's good. There's times when I don't buy something.
Yeah.
But it's my way, because I could really go crazy shopping. So it's my way of gut checking.
Yeah.
Do I really want
checking in with yourself to make sure that you're not just spending money for the sake of spending money.
Right. And it's not about the money.
Right.
It's about, is this something I want?
Yeah.
Truly. I have a lot of clothes, but I'm trying to get myself to allow me to change my wardrobe every year if I want.
Yeah.
I also have 2 huge boxes in my car right now. They're going to Goodwill. So I will cycle things.
Yeah.
If, but I really wanted this dress I bought.
Yeah.
So cute.
So,
but, yeah. But, I may have bought bigger items. But I've not let this stop me. I'm not going to have, well, now I have a job, but even before I got it, I wasn't going to be afraid of anything.
Right.
Everything works out the way it's supposed to.
Totally. So I think one thing to note that's very important is your ratio of trust to fear, because I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, in theory, I could go do that. I could have the trust, say they got laid off or say something happens financially. And they're going to be like, yeah, sure, I could trust. But you're like, you have zero doubt that you're going to be taken care of. And I feel because some people are like, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to trust, and they go and spend money, but there's a subconscious belief there that they don't actually believe they'll be taken care of. And so they end up in this financial pickle because they're like, oh, shoot, my money's gone. So I'm going to make it clear in your situation that you literally, like, your trust is so strong and so deep, you literally don't even spend any time thinking about doubt whatsoever. Like, it doesn't even enter your, like, realm, because you're just like, why would I doubt? There's no time or space for it for you in your world, but you've also worked on that over the course of years to build your trust and to build like what your needs are. So I just want to make that clear for the audience listening, because I think it's very easy to be like, oh, I'm going to trust. But if you haven't gotten rid of your subconscious cobwebs and they're like lingering in the dark, being like, oh, sure you are, like not really
actually. It has to be full trust.
Yes.
You have to know.
Exactly.
It's not
like every fiber of your body. Yeah. You have to know.
Right. A lot of people, and in a lot of cases, rightly so, would have canceled their photo shoot.
Right.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
I was doing my photo shoot. Yeah. My birthday photo shoot. And I'm not going away.
Right.
I knew it'd be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you knew that. Like, you knew
I know it in every fiber of my being.
Yeah. If someone held a gun to your head and was like, oh, do you, you would have been like, I know it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. There was a time I was out with my friends. Oh boy. And we were parked in an alley. This is in LA. And there's like 6 of us. And we're walking to go to a club. And there's 2 guys and they pull a gun on us. And it's like, oh, these guys aren't going to do anything. I'm just like, oh, no. They're like, we could shoot you. I go, and you're not going to shoot all of us before someone gets to you. So no one gets to hold a gun to me.
Oh my gosh.
They back off, right away. It was like, no, this isn't happening.
But that's also just because you inherently, like, again, trusting yourself, trusting your gut, you were able to dictate the situation because of your ability to trust yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about women who are like, oh, damn, that seems like really nice to be able to, number 1, trust yourself. Number 2, know yourself. Number 3, support yourself. And then number 4, to be so open in life that you just get to focus on like your enjoyments, your hobbies, having fun, and the rest is just going to come to you. What do you tell women who are just, say, for example, like if you could go and tell your college self who had experienced the trauma, experienced like a lack of confidence, what would you tell her now when she's like, you know, she doesn't even know that this is what she needs to work on?
First thing that has to happen is you have to truly get to know who you are.
So it's almost like you need to take time out.
Yeah. You know, it's, and I when I meet someone who has never lived by themselves, you know, male or female, I'm always like, it's frustrating to me because it's like there's such a really cool thing that happens because you get to know yourself. You get to really feel what your feelings are. You get to discover the things that really do make you happy.
And it sounds like that came from, so when you were referring to living by yourself, it's like you needed silence.
Yeah.
You needed no distractions.
Yeah.
To be able to tap into like, who am I?
Yeah. It's, you know, and there's been several times in my life where I've stopped and said, you know, because you change.
Yep.
Yeah. We evolve, we'd like to think at least. Yes. But there's been several times where I stop and I think, you know, who am I? What makes me happy? And that's a big question that I think people should always be asking themselves. What makes me happy?
Yeah.
And gear towards those things, tap into that so that if you're tapping into the things that make you happy, you're going to get a lot more trust for yourself.
Yeah. But it's a risk.
Because you're giving it to yourself.
Yeah. It's also a risk, but you have to be willing to take the risk.
Yeah. It's the be good to yourself.
Yeah.
You've got it down to an art form.
Right. But not in the beginning, though. Not in the beginning. It was I'm sure it would have felt very outer body. Again, a muscle that you're building. And it's like you have to take baby steps of like, okay, how can I make myself feel safe, moving and making decisions and things that make me happy?
Yeah. You know, yeah. It's definitely a muscle you build. But I think a good starting point is identifying things that make you happy and going with those things and doing those things.
Well, and how can you identify those if you're not creating space in your life where you can actually get the inspiration or get the downloads or spend the time journaling because you're just
to know who you are.
Exactly. Because you're just barreling from like one to-do task to another task or keeping yourself busy. So, okay. So first recommendation, spend some time alone. What are some other things that you would say to yourself back in that phase that's like, what else could you have recommended?
It's okay and it's important to feel your feelings. Don't try to move past them. Don't try to shut them off. Let it happen. There's a lot of growth that happens when you experience your emotions and your feelings.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, to not feel like there's a monster hiding in there that when you feel.
Yeah. It's a release when you let it happen. And it takes away a lot of stress.
Yeah. Well, and you gain a lot of clarity as well. We can feel your emotions.
And a lot of people, you know, have some shame around crying. Now, I know I need that emotional release sometimes. And I don't always have something to do it. I will watch the saddest movie that I have.
Just to get it out. It's like an exercise, like you're going for an exercise.
It is. Yeah. If I can watch something that I know is going to tap in with me emotionally and make me cry. If I need a good cry, I'll throw that on. And I will I don't try to squash my tears when I start crying. When I cry, I ugly cry. You know, let it happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you, again, in your process of being alone and cultivating silence and cultivating personal development, you realize that this is something, again, that was like a tool in your tool belt, which is how I see crying. It's like, oh yeah, the more you cry, not that, you know, you want to cry all the time or you want to be triggered to cry all the time, because that's a sign of dysregulation, but that, you know, it's a tool in your tool belt. And when you see it as that, and you see your body is pulling you towards like a good cry, it's absolutely like a lot of women are just, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm crying. I'm like, no. Like, it's actually a really good thing.
Yes.
Like, it's like your body is trying to regulate. It's trying to clear and like remove this, remove trauma. Yeah, exactly.
It lets it go. It's a way for something to leave you.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast and for sharing just your beautiful life. And, I feel like it's one thing for, me to talk about myself, but to see other women and how they're living their life and dealing with the day-to-day, like breast cancer and losing your job. They're so things that happen to so many. Right. But those two things alone can shatter people's abilities to live a happy life. And you've managed to live a happy life amidst those things happening. And so for you to come on and share your testimonial and to show women how you can have an amazing, incredible, filled, your cup is overflowing with joy because you live so vicariously and you live so full of happiness that it's incredible. And I want to share that with other people because it's just this is what happens when you do the work, right? This is what happens when you discover yourself and you prioritize healing and prioritize I deserve to have a happy life.
And it doesn't stop.
Right.
You constantly have to be doing that.
Yeah. You have to encourage it.
If anyone's thinking that, oh, she hit it, she got it. It's
you have to keep choosing.
I'm always doing it.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about, is this still making me happy? Is this still what I want to be doing? Is this still, staying in touch with my true inner self?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. It's a plant that you have to water and you have to be aware of it and you have to treat it like, it's a delicate flower that,
just like marriages have to constantly be worked on. You don't get married and then hit a point and then, the work's done.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's like a marriage with yourself.
Exactly.
That always have to check in, always have to work on.
I love that. Amazing. Well, thank you.
Thanks for having me.